So yeah, what are the, and someone repeat to me the three objects in the Git graph, the directed acyclic graph that makes up Git's history.
Commits, trees, and blobs.
Exactly right. Yes. Yeah, it is. It is a graph. You know, as we went through and looked in detail yesterday. To put some of that in context, like most of what we did yesterday, we're not going to do today. Like we won't use git cat file because that's just for going under the covers and doing what we did yesterday. You don't have to do that in normal life. We won't go down in the .git directory because we don't have to do that normally. We won't even use reset that much. That's kind of if you get off track in many cases, unless I want to move around and kind of simulate situations that we might see that we would see in real life. So the trees, can someone describe what those three trees are to me that we looked at toward the end of yesterday?
I think you've got the head, the index, and the workspace. Are those the three trees you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly right. And how would you describe them?
I'll give it a shot. So I think the workspace is the local file that you have on your computer that you're kind of making all your changes. The index kind of sits in between and you kind of commit changes to it that are kind of like staged and ready to go and be pushed up to the master branch or the main branch that you're trying to work off of. And then the head is kind of, it seems kind of like the master branch that everybody's working off of. I could be wrong on that one.
Yeah, the head is associated with the branch. Could be master, could be something else. Usually, and almost always is a branch. We did see, I think, one case where I did a git checkout of a specific SHA, and Git gave me a bunch of warnings that, hey, you know, you can do this, but be careful, this is not normal behavior. But you can do that and look around. The thing, you know, head is the only sort of commit associated tree, right? The other trees don't actually have a commit associated with them. The index has a tree that you're kind of getting ready to put under a commit. If you remember, our commit data type had a tree associated with it. So you've got to get that all, you know, at some point ready to go. So with the index, you're kind of building up your tree and getting ready to attach it to this commit you're going to make. That's one way to think of it. So it's a tree that uses a tree, if you will, for its data. And then the workspace is kind of like if you had taken the commit and then unpacked it out into an actual file system that, you know, sits locally. So that's your workspace doesn't actually consist of a commit or consist of a, you know, a Git tree SHA, but it's the representation of it on your file system so that you can work with it in your IDE and, you know, compile stuff and things like that. So that all makes sense so far.
I think so, but just so I'm like, is the workspace like literally the actual files that are the part of that will be committed? Like they are the workspace is made up of the files that are a part of the commit. Is that fair to say, or is it like a abstraction of that?
Well, so one way to think of it is you're familiar with like tar gzips and things like that. Like compressed file, you know.
Yes, yeah, I've definitely seen like zip files or tar zip. Yes, that.
And you do an unzip, right? And they all come out, and there they are on your file system. But you still have the zip. You know, may still have the zip file there as well, right? So one way to think of a commit is like a very complex zip file. And when you do a git check, it unpacks that whole thing and you know, unfolds it out onto your directory space, and it looks like, you know, actual Mac OS or Linux files and directories with Mac OS and Linux permissions and file names. All those things that are encapsulated in the data structures are now manifested on your workspace, as your workspace, I should say. So it may happen to correspond to your Git commit until you start changing it, and then it doesn't correspond anymore. And then you do things like git adds and get, commits to repackage it into a new version of that compressed sort of representation of your work.
Okay, no, that definitely helps clarify. And I don't know if we've got time for another quick question. This one,
Sure.
I think I
Yeah,
should understand this at this point, but I'm a little slow. We've been talking so much about SHAs, and I just want to make sure I'm following what it actually is. So, like, I could have there's this like hashing algorithm, right? And it's taking like the content, like let's if I had a text file that had like one sentence in it, hello world or something like that. I feed that actual content into this algorithm. The algorithm pops out a number or some string of alphanumeric characters. That string, like that literal string, those characters, that is my SHA. And that SHA is like a fingerprint for said content, right? And that is what, when we're talking about this content addressable file system, like the ID for the content is that SHA. That's what we're talking about. And then the commit is just like that SHA. Like, hey, this was this SHA right here, that's the address to that file. Is that right?
So you're exactly right up to the point where you started talking about the commit contents. If you remember, we did a git cat file of a commit, and the commit had its SHA, but its content was actually other SHAs, right? If you remember, there was a tree SHA, actually the word tree and a space, and then a SHA that corresponded to the tree, which was created the same way that you just described, right? That tree was passed through that algorithm and put somewhere, and then there's a SHA associated with it. And then there was a parent and a space, and then a commit SHA for where this thing is going to be, what the previous version was of your branch. And then there was I think the author and committer information as well, and then an empty line, and then the comment. All of that that's the content of a commit SHA. And that's what gets passed through the SHA algorithm, and then out pops the commit SHA itself. And then that content is compressed and put into that directory in .git/objects in that structure we looked at, where the first two characters are stripped off and made into a directory, and then the rest of the SHA is made into this compressed file that actually is that content that is being addressed. So that's how the addressing works. But yeah, that's the content becomes the address. That's exactly what's meant by content addressable.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Chris.
So yeah, great question. Go ahead.
Is there a way with like language we can distinguish between trees in the context of inside a commit versus trees in the other sense? Because I find that very confusing. Like it was clear what you meant in this last sentence, but like a few minutes ago, I was very unclear which one you were referring to.
Yeah. So I won't be referring to the three trees much, except in sort of like academic, today teaching context. It'll be like head, index, and workspace, and those will be those. That's what I mean by the three trees, and then we actually won't use the word tree as far as tree SHA very much either, because they'll almost always be attached to commits. There are commands you can use to look at the index and see the tree SHA that the index has associated with it, but I mean, I use it so rarely that I forget what it is. So gitscm.com uses it somewhere here and there to show you what's going on. But in real life, yeah, that's something you won't really need to worry about. But the head, index, and workspace concepts and what commands operate on those is very, very much in the middle of what you'll be concerned with. So to that point, what commands that you do use every day change those head commits or head, index, and workspace?
I guess add,
Mm-hmm.
and push.
what does add do with respect to those three? Those three.
Index.
I'm sorry, say again.
Does it affect the index?
Git add, yes. How does it affect the index?
Because it gets put in that staging area. That's where the index is, right? Goes from workspace to index.
Exactly, from workspace to index. So your workspace is in whatever state it's in, and then when you do a git add, workspace doesn't change, but then your index gets brought up to speed with where your workspace is at. So then they become in sync. What's the next step typically after that?
Commit.
Okay. And what happens with a commit as far as those three areas go?
It changes from the index to the local repository.
Yeah. It's actually that's when it actually becomes a full-fledged member of the Git repo. It'd be, that's when a commit is created. So your index doesn't actually have a commit yet. It's got things stay ready for committing, but when you commit, you don't change the workspace, you don't change the index, but you do change where the head is pointing. And in fact, you change where the thing that head points to is pointing, because remember, head points to it's a symbolic reference to a branch in almost all cases. So it actually changes, it moves head and that branch together. So head still, if it's pointing to master, it still points to master, but Git resolves that to an actual new SHA with now a pointer to a parent that is the previous version of your repo. So far so good. So let's try this. Does someone who is a project a team lead would they mind adding me as a project member, inviting me to somebody who's got changes in play in their repo? I want to join your team. I promise I won't mess anything up. You'll have to trust me. Actually, you don't. You can just blow away my changes. But let me temporarily join your team and work through a collaboration of a change, just to kind of get warmed up, and then we'll all try that. And then I think the next thing after that is to look at merge collisions and how we handle those. So who will have me?
So I'm adding you right now.
Awesome.
Actually, two accounts come up. There's one that says your full name and one that's like Walquist Linas. Which one's the correct one with your?
I don't think I've heard of the second one.
Okay.
There might be another Walquist out there.
I thought it was your alter ego for your super.
I'll have to look that up.
Okay, so just accept the invite. It's sent.
Awesome. July 13/tags. All right. So as long as I know that, then I should be able to go clone that thing on down. So let me share my screen and kind of work through and stumble around and see what happens as I join this awesome new team. So let's get rid of all that. Here I am in tags. Everybody's seeing that okay? So I want to join July 13 tags. So I have to get out of where I'm at now. All right, and I'll just move this off somewhere else. So now I can git clone. And let's see, I'll go ahead and use the HTTPS. So github.com, and then the first user or organization is July 13, and the repo is tags. And awesome, there I am. So now I can go into tags and see where I'm at. And first thing I would do is kind of make sure that I am where I think I am. So look at my pointing. So my origin now is this other repo, not the one I was pointing to with my other tags repo, my other tags directory. So that's good. That's where I want to be. So now I can either use my command line history looker and see what's going on. Oh, looks like a lot has happened. Or I can pop this into my source tree. So let's try that. I'm going to delete this one and just the bookmark. I'm not also going to delete the repo itself. So I'm just going to take away the bookmark and then go get another one. So I'm selected local. And so I can add an existing local repo. Where am I at? Source, code platoon tags. So this is where I clone to. And let's pop that open and see what we got. Okay. So we started way down here.
Chris, is there any way to make that window just a little bit bigger?
Let's see. Let's see if I just hit plus on it. Zoom. Whoa, no, that doesn't do much for the text though, does it? Does anybody know an option to increase text size on source tree? I don't know offhand. I'm sorry, I'm not, if someone comes, can
No worries. I
find
think
that?
that actually might have helped me a little bit, just having it bigger.
Yeah, no, I get you. I'll look into that some more, but offhand, I'm not.
If you shrink the window down a little bit and then you just share a window instead of sharing your whole laptop, unless you're going to be going back and forth a lot.
Let me do that now because I'm going to look at this. Yeah, I'm going to look at this one in a minute. So that's a great thought. Just share the source tree window.
Hey, while you're doing that, what was the command you ran to see the graphical interpretation of the branches in your command terminal?
So if you ran that bin or the source bin get aliases.sh, one of those aliases is adog, which is short for git log -- all -- decorate -- one line -- graph, which is why aliases are awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So okay, we got a commit starting from the empty Django web service. And the first commit, so the next thing that happened on this line anyway is we follow on up to the next dot, the first commit. Here's another commit with words. And we can see what those words are, okay? And then somebody made the sun image in there, okay? And so no merges yet. Actually, there's one here. So somebody did merge in here. So here's an example, like if I were to go and do a git cat file on this guy, I would see two parents because there's this parent and this parent. So merge came in. Where did that start from? Okay, that started from the empty mild tags. And then there was a branch off here. Okay, and lots of changes here, looks like. Okay, some models, all right. And then another merge came in here from that. So suppose that so this is, if you see this, the dot with the circle around it, that's where my master is right now, right? So if I look around, I'm going to be looking at changes that are reflected right here. If I were like you guys, maybe I haven't, let's suppose I haven't actually like done any git pulls or merges or anything. I'm just coming in, I've been lazy and not done anything at all. And I've just started right here. Does anybody know a command that would put my master back or master back down here? Because right now it's up at the top, right?
Revert.
Yeah, if I wanted to, start with my master here, how would I do that? Anybody know offhand?
Git reset.
Okay. What flavor? Soft, mixed, or hard?
It would be hard. And then you put the number, like the first 5 numbers of the SHA.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not really anything pointing there, so I kind of have to use the SHA itself because there's no branch or tag or anything that would resolve to that SHA. So exactly right. So 38DC3. So let's try that. I've just checked out, so I don't have anything in, any changes in play. So here I am. Right now I'm down. I'm 15 behind. Oh my gosh. Now let's also suppose that I forgot to, forgot that I was behind. I forgot to do a Git pull. I'm going along and, thinking, well, I've got some great ideas for this website. Let's see what we have so far. So this is empty. I can do anything I want, right? So what do I want to do? Let's just do something totally random. This is not going to work with the website and all that, but let's just try it. I'm way out of touch. I'm just going to make an empty. I'm going to make an HTML file. So let's just do that. So here I go, making my changes. I'm clueless. I don't know what I'm doing. So I'll make an HTML tag, and I'm going to put a body here, and I'm going to make a nice image of a cat. Okay. That looks like that would be just the coolest thing. So I save that. Okay, and do all my testing. Oops. So that should be here now. Make sure it's there. I can probably open it. I haven't actually tried this. Let's see if this works. Okay. Not quite, because I have to have. Anyway, let's assume that works. Actually, maybe this will work. It's a really cool picture. I just hope I can make it work. Or not. If I can spell, I can make it work, maybe. There it is. All right. Awesome. So I love that. I'm going to commit it. So I do a git status, and I see that it's ready to add to my index, right? So git add, and git commit. So there I am. So how am I doing with the rest of the team now? With respect to the rest of the team. So here's where I was on this empty Django web service, and now I'm up here. So what's going to happen if I do a git push now?
You have a merge conflict.
Git push origin master. Okay, authentication failed. All right.
Did
I've got to use
add
it
it to the remote?
I think I have to do is I'm going to switch my protocol to SSH because I've got my SSH key set up. So let's do this, git remote. So right now I'm using HTTPS, right? I can change this. Did you guys run into this, by the way, this message?
I had that problem. I had the link in the clone and he had added me, but because I hadn't gone into Git to accept his correspondence, like it wasn't in there. So he had given me permission, but I didn't like accept the permissions, so I didn't have the permissions.
If you don't have, yeah, when I didn't have my token set up properly, yeah, I would get that.
Okay. Yeah, I won't, unless you guys run into this and need my help with it, I'm not going to dwell on this. Normally you get asked for a user pass, but Git has changed the way they do things. So they've moved to this personal access token that you can set up in your settings in your github.com account. And then if you need me to go through that, I can do a tiny bit of research and get up to speed myself on that. But for right now, for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and use SSH. And eventually, yeah, I think you guys will, you might want to gravitate there as well, because it ends up being easier than managing access tokens. But it's just it's a choice of how you want to authenticate to GitHub. So first thing I've got to do is got to get rid of my old origin. And then I add it, and it's going to be the same thing, except just a slightly different protocol. So I add, origin, and instead of saying this HTTPS thing, I will say the SSH protocol, and that looks like basically a login. If you've SSH to other machines, this is essentially what you're doing with Git as well, as SSHing in to this special place and special user, github.com. And then instead of a slash, you put a colon, and then everything that after that is the same. So this is what you'll have. You may see a .git. That's kind of optional. Like, I don't think Git really cares. I just don't use it because I don't have to. So now let's see what happens. If I try Git push again. Okay. Have you guys seen that before? Rejected. So it said they're rejected because the tip of your current branch is behind its remote counterpart. What does that mean?
So the remote had a SHA that was 15 steps ahead of yours, and it does not match the SHA of your current place because you're 15 steps behind. Is that kind of what's going on?
Yeah, the streams have diverged, right? So True Lie 13 is way up here, and I didn't click into that, and I went off on my own, literally my own path. And now I'm trying to say, okay, just put it on in there, and it's saying, how do you want to put in? Because now they're going different places. So pushing is going to, it's trying to go this way and just join the stream again. But what has to be done is a pull. And I have to work this out on my side because GitHub doesn't have enough information to be able to resolve all those questions that come up when you try to take two divergent branches and join them back together. So there's a couple ways to do this. One way is I could just do a merge. So how would I go about that? Anybody gone through this exercise before?
I mean, I guess you'd start with a pull, right?
Yeah, I have to do what I forgot to do before. You should always really do this first, do a git pull, and if you're working on a shared branch. So yeah, this will be what I would do. And it's got all these branches that it knows about now. Okay, and it says there's no tracking information. So now then I need to do the, yeah, I want to pull from origin and I want to merge from master. Remember the origin / master, that's why it doesn't know, because the remote master is a different branch than my master. So I have to tell it, yes, I want my master to be merged from the remote master into my master. And it says, okay, here's the comment I'm going to make. It depending on how you have your environment set up, it will pop you into your editor of choice. Mine happens to be VI. That's why I'm seeing this display here. But you can set it up to be your your VS Code as well. I think that might be in my notes somewhere on the site. Let me make a note to actually to find that at some point, how to set that up. But now, right for now, I'll do VI because that's where I'm at. So I'll save that as the comment. Let's see what happened. Apologies for the small text, but basically here's my change and Pikachu change, and then here's my merge up here. So that works. It's a little messy, but it works. So fortunately, my change was so much off the reservation, off the radar, that it didn't even conflict because it's so different than everything everybody else was doing. So you're not going to have that pleasant experience. You're going to have things that are going to be in the same place in the code as what everyone else is doing. So you're going to get some merge conflicts.
Chris, may I, and I hope you don't mind me just asking a quick question here. I know you're
Please do. Please do.
Would you mind showing your terminal one more time? And I just wanted to see that command again. It happened a little fast when you did the merge, and I just want to like look at the line to make sure I'm following.
Sure. So I first tried to push and did not manage to because I forgot to pull. So then I did Git Pull. And
okay, and Git Pull goes to the current head on remote, and it pulls down all that new stuff, right? Or all the stuff that was 15 steps ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Well, so there's two steps in a pull that encompass a Git Pull. The first is a fetch, which is what I think is what you see happening here, right? All the new information is getting transferred from remote to local, but nothing like that's only in the repo record. Like that, there's SHAs getting pulled over, that it knows that it's learning about, but it's not changing your workspace yet. That doesn't happen until the second part, which is the merge. And then when it tried to merge, it says, I don't have enough information down here, right? At this point, step 2 is like, okay, I've got everything, I fetched everything over, but now I don't know what you want to do with it.
Okay, so when it was just one command here, then you did the pull, and the pull does a fetch, and then it does a merge. Like you said, there's 2 steps there. Okay, I think that's where I was confused. I thought I'd missed a command line there, or a command, but I hadn't. Okay, thank you.
Great question. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and it's all kind of squished together in this output. But you're basically getting, to the merge part, and then it says, you haven't told me what you want to merge from, and that's all this verbiage here. And then it says you can go ahead and tell me by doing this. So it's mostly what people want to do, but I think now that I've done this, this is a version of this without actually setting the default, but I think Git might go ahead and set that like so. So let me verify that by trying just Git Pull again. Nope, it didn't. All right, so it does want me to go ahead and 2 equals origin / and then master. That's what it wants me to do, I think, is this. Now, if I do a git pull, I only have to say git pull. I don't have to say git pull origin master every time, because now I've connected origin master with my local master as a, tracking origin master. So yeah, so now when I do a git pull, it says, okay, I know what you mean. This is all in, where do they keep that? I think it's config. Yeah, in the .git directory, there's a config file, and it stores stuff like this in this INI format. So I basically just did that. I put that in that file by virtue of saying this, dash setup stream 2, and it stored that information here. So now it knows what to do, because it looks at that config to figure that stuff out. So, okay, so I did this. I did the merge. So now if I do a git push, what's going to happen?
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
For we need to git pull remote branch I thought we were pulling from the remote main to the local main. Why is origin in that command?
So origin is the name of the remote, right? Origin is what the github.com/truelie13/tags is an alias basically for that whole thing. So I could, theoretically, well, I don't know if Git syntax supports this, but conceptually I'm saying git pull from https github.com truelie13 tags /master to my local master. So origin is just a shortcut basically for that kind of reference of that remote. Because if I do a git remote, it just tells me this thing here is named origin. So you can use origin in order to refer to this repo out there on github.com. I can set other ones, like I can have my Git repo point to all kinds of different remotes. I could point to, if you were on the interweb somewhere, I could point to yours. I could point to other remotes on the file system, on my own file system, and and pull and push to those. So Git is a distributed version control system. So it can make any kind of network that it wants. But you have to, guide it through this network by virtue of these named remote points. So that's all that origin is. It's just a name. I could call it anything I wanted. There's nothing special about that name aside from what it actually points to.
Since you have that open, quick question. It looks like since you have an origin, it has two URLs there, the fetch and the push. Would there ever be like a time where you'd have a different fetch and a different push for the same name, or can you even do that?
You certainly could. I haven't, in the kind of projects I've been involved in, I haven't ever had to do that. There could be situations where maybe you want to, maybe you have instead of a kind of an out and back workflow, maybe you have a workflow that goes around to some other, like I don't know, a unit testing framework that that pushes out there, and then if it succeeds there, then it goes. That's the one that goes back around to GitHub, and gets changes back to GitHub. I don't know, but yeah, certainly you could point them to different places depending on your workflow. Good question. Sorry, I don't have a good answer.
That was a good answer. Thanks.
So yeah, that's one thing I could do, and I did that. Let me not type for a minute. There's one thing I could show you here, and I'll do that, but I'll hold off on it for the moment. Have you guys run into merge collisions already? In the work
Not
you've done?
really so far, I don't think. At least
Okay.
I haven't.
So let me let you guys kind of do some typing yourself for it's 9:45. So feel free to take whatever combination of like you know, project working and a break in the next 20 minutes, and then I'll come back and work through a situation with a merge conflict if you have, you know, if you haven't hit that already. But feel free to make more changes and work on your website, and you know, and take a break. And we'll come back at, let's see, was it 9:46? So let's come back at like 5 after 10. And if you have any questions in the meantime, yeah, slack me up and or just say hey, and I'll talk through whatever.
Can we get the breakout rooms open?
Yeah, how do I do that? Anchor, how do I manage the breakout rooms? Is that something you do? I don't see a place for that here. Is Anchor with us?
I'll Slack him real quick. Yeah, I think Tom or Ankur is usually the one who can do.
Okay. Sounds good.
I made up, like I had to do that because yeah, I was completely behind.
Yeah, I do it a lot. So yeah, that sequence is almost automatic for me now. So yeah, that'll come in handy. So let's do one more thing. I set up an example here. By the way, I did, Jonathan, I did figure out that if I accepted your invitation, I could push all my terrible code up to your master. So I did that. Great. You're welcome. So I did also get, you know, because I merged, I got all the goodness of the spicy Python web server going from that project. So that's cool. So I'll share the screen here. I can now run the Python web server. So good job. Glad I could contribute. So what else I want to demonstrate is this, there's this thing called Git Rebase, and this kind of has to do with like project etiquette, courtesy of Git. And what I mean by that is if you make changes locally, as I think I mentioned before, you can commit as much as you want locally and then clean it up later, but I did not describe exactly how to do that. So that is, let's see, this, yeah, common Git workflows. We did the resolve merge collision just then. There's a Git rebase, clean up commit history before pushing. So I'll demonstrate an example of that because I think that could also come in handy for you. On the one hand, you know, I hope maybe I haven't emphasized this enough, but I hope you've seen that Git does have your back if you're really, you know, picking up what it has to offer as far as, you know, the commits staying around, even if you take a branch away from them. You can use Git reflog to go back and recover, you know, stuff that it doesn't have a pointer. So it does have your back. You can try things. On the other hand, if you're trying things and committing things, you got kind of a messy commit history. So for example, I made some more changes that I haven't committed yet. But if we look in, where is it here? If we look here, we can see kind of some of the stuff that I have gone ahead and done. So, sorry, it's so small, but basically just tiny little ticky-tacky changes like I had a syntax error I realized in my image source. And I mean, it was terrible. The cat wasn't showing up, so I had to fix that immediately. And then, oh yeah, I need to fix the heading as well. And you know what? I'll add a div and space it out and make it vertical, you know, and oh, you know, I'll just edit everything. So just a bunch of stuff I would not want to like throw at my team all in all these commits. They don't need to see my stream of thought coding, right? So how do we squash all this down into something more palatable? And that's what Git rebase is all about. So it really ends up being pretty simple. You choose what you want to squash or package up, and then you get thrown into the editor to make it so. And it ends up being the exact same changes, but all in one commit, or at least fewer commits. So for instance, if I wanted to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 commits after I've pushed, I'll talk about why I would not want to change this later, but you want to take things that you haven't pushed yet. But you have to choose a reference point. So I can go back to origin master, or I can say head caret 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's say -I for interactive. And head caret 6 will work. Origin master will work. Anything that gets me to that commit. Actually, maybe that won't work. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so never mind. Head caret 6 is not a valid syntax. So what that does now, though, is show me all those commits in an editor, and it also shows me a bunch of documentation, which is very handy. So I can choose what I want to do to these lines. And it basically proceeds in order, in ascending order of time. So for instance, S is squash. This is what I want to do, is squash a bunch of these. And what I would just do is, what happens is the commit that I choose, that I squash, goes on to the previous commit. So because Git, as we saw, works with commits that have parents, so you have to do with respect to the parent. So I can either type S or just all of, the whole thing. I'll squash, whoops. I'll squash that one. I'll squash that one. I'll just squash them all down onto this one commit. So then I'm going to quit out of there, and the next thing it's doing is going to pop me back in and say, okay, here's the news commit. Give it a comment that you like. So let's quit out of here. Okay, notice it said still waiting. So now the next thing you see is all these comments. And it says you can use them all, or you can, anything that's not got like a hash mark is going to be included in your comment. So, I can just say something like, fix a typo, add some styling. Right? But now I have to delete everything else that I don't want to include in the comment. Okay, so I did that. I don't have to worry about anything that's got hash marks because it won't show up in my comment. Okay, let's see what we did.
Chris, how did you delete entire lines right there in your editor?
I have a Vim plugin that I use in my editor, so I did it differently than you would do it.
What's it called?
Vim, V-I-M.
It's just the plugin. It's called Vim.
Yeah, well, Vim is something you'd find on any Linux machine, but I use it so much that I put it everywhere else that I would, I'm using code so it doesn't freak you guys out too much, but under the hood, I'm still using Vim with that plugin. So, which, by the way, since you brought it up, I would recommend that the two things you really need to know are Git and Vim. But we only have time for Git this class. But Vim is awesome and should be a part of your tool set. Google Vim Golf, Vim tutorial, whatever. There's lots of stuff out there. You won't need to use the mouse very much. I'll say that. So what happened here? We got basically all the changes that we had that made up those 6 commits now are there, but they're in one commit. And now it's all just much more kind of readable. So if I were to push that up, it would be just a nicer change for my team to understand and consume and comment on or reject. But it's all packaged up. So on the one hand, I can keep my checkpoints and commit what I want and make sure I stay in an own good spot locally with my own development iterations. On the other hand, I can, when I'm ready, I can refactor it and make it all nice. And Git helps me to keep the essence and the substance of the change while putting it in a form that is more more palatable to the rest of the team, and doesn't, they don't have to pick through my process in order to understand what's going on.
Chris,
so that
I'm sorry to interrupt. The workflow there then would be, let's say I'm working on a feature branch, and like the workflow is, okay, I've just made a change. I want to make sure I add that change and commit because I want to do that regularly. But I wouldn't, at that point, I wouldn't push it. I would have all these commits that I have yet to push. And if every time I did the commit, I also pushed, this doesn't help in that situation. This is when I've done a bunch of commits and I have not pushed. And I don't want to show all those commits individually. Okay, thank you. Is that about right?
What's that?
Does that sound about right?
That's exactly right, and it's an extremely important point. So if I were to go back to and change this commit that had already been pushed, Git will let me do it. Like I can go back as far as I want, but then when I try to push, then I'm going to run into problems because now the commit that origin master is on is different than the commit that my master would now be on. The reason it worked here is because I didn't try to change the common ancestor, if you will, of where I'm coming from and where origin master is coming from. If I had, then I'd be in a bind because now I'd have to go merge again on the one hand, or force push, which would be even worse, because now everybody else is going to have to reset, and reorient on this new origin master that now differs from what they thought origin master was. So yeah, force push is going to be just a very what's the word, draconian solution to any problem that you almost never want to do. And if you get rebase something that includes that that commit, then you're gonna be in a bind. So as long as you have, exactly right, Michael, as long as you haven't pushed, go ahead and rebase, but don't rebase any commits that have already been pushed, I think is the way to kind of summarize it. Otherwise, you gotta re-reconcile with the rest of your team.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, so couple of cleanup items. One thing I didn't show you, but you have in your aliases is there's Git Diff, which is GD. There's also GDS, which is Git Diff -- staged. So Git Diff by default will just compare your index and your workspace. If you have something that's in the index, it won't tell you if it's different than head. However, dash dash stage does tell you that. So I use both of those a lot to kind of see what's different from what. So if I want to say workspace versus index, I just say git diff. If I want to say index versus head, I'd say git diff dash dash staged or GDS. And so that helps me to understand kind of where things are at in my in the state of my trees. So that comes in handy a lot for me. The other thing I'll just mention, you can look into it more, but sometimes you're working on something and you need to like switch your workspace away to another branch, but you want to keep what you got, but it's not ready to commit. You can use something called git stash, which basically takes the state of your workspace and index and puts it on a stack, a stash stack. So let me show you what that looks like. So let's go BI this thing again. Oops, sorry, use BI, but make a change. It's different, right? If I do a git status, it shows it's modified. Oops, I get a call from my boss. I've got to get on another branch to fix something, and I needed to not abandon this, but put this aside. So in this case, I can just say git stash, and everything Git knows about that's not committed, it will put in that stash. So now if I do a git status, my workspace is clean now, but I also have a stash saved, and I can look at it with list, git stash list, and there it is. And so as soon as I go and check out another branch, push up the change, boss is happy, come back. Okay, now I can start again. So then I just do a git stash pop off the stack, and now I'm back where I started before all that drama happened. So that's also occasionally handy. That's mostly it. I can talk a couple minutes about branches. We've used them, but they're really not complicated. You can create branches, and they aren't actually, if we remember the data fields in our object types, there's nothing in there that's called branch in any of those object types. So branch is kind of a meta concept as far as the Git data model is concerned. It's not a part of a commit SHA or a tree SHA or a blob SHA. It's just this marker that Git uses to kind of keep track of where things are at. So, you can create branches anywhere you want if you want to like keep things visible in your history, like I just did with that temporary marker branch a little while ago. And you can delete them when you're done with them if they're merged, and the commits are represented in some merge branch that has master at its head. Then you don't need the intermediate branches, and Git will let you delete them without complaining. I used to be kind of afraid to delete branches because I thought that I would want to know more about history and with the names of the branches, but I actually don't. It turns out that it's not that important. What's important is that you've got these commits and know how to move around and navigate in the graph, the history graph, with what we've looked at. That's about all I've got for you today. There's some more on this front page further down that I haven't really gone into. Where is it at? Actually, it's back on the README of the github.com tags. There's some more hints about diffing, viewing changes here. So you can look through here. One handy one is if you're working with like large files that are parts of packages like .js files, jQuery or stuff, and you update it, then it's going to show up in your history and be this big, incredibly long diff that clutters up your whole view of what's what you really care about. So you could exclude that from your diff with this syntax here. So that comes in handy. You don't want to git ignore it because it does go into your code. It goes into your commit, so you don't want to .git ignore it. But you do want to like not have to look at it. So that's what I use that for sometimes. And then you can also diff arbitrary commits, along a line of commits by using this dot syntax. This source tree GUI kind of does that if you select multiple commits, you can get the same effect like this, and then you'll see all the commits, the commit diffs. They kind of sum up to what's going on. So that's the essentially the same thing. Okay. Any other questions before we call it? I'll put a survey on the pop-up